people, what they don't realize is when they do a 20-minute zone 2, they start out at a heart rate of, let's say, Mark, you're at what, 130, what are you, how old are you, 45?
Yeah, I'm usually between 135 and 140 or something like that.
Okay, so, right, so let's say your maffetone is 135. So he's going to run at 135, and he's going to start out, let's say, a 10-minute mile. He's just doing 20 minutes. And what's going to happen is you got these two variables. Well, when you get tired, which variable do you maintain? Do you maintain your heart rate and stay at 135, or do you maintain your speed? And so let's just say that what you do is you maintain speed. Well, what will happen is to your heart rate, as you get tired, it's going to drift upwards. Well, now you may have gone out of zone 2 and gone into zone 3.
This happens to me all the time.
And that's, and most people believe.
I'm like, which way do I go? Do I slow down or do I speed up? Because after I've been doing it for 10, 20, 30 minutes.
That's what happens. It drifts. And so most people think, oh, higher heart rate, better, it's a progressive run. Like, they are runs that are done that way where you intentionally build your speed, but that's not the purpose of a zone 2. You have to know what the purpose is in this workout. So if you just follow that 10-minute mile from start to finish and your heart rate starts to climb, you've just ruined the purpose of the workout. What was the point? You didn't do it correctly. You took a easy pace zone 2 slow twitch aerobic workout and turned it into a fast twitch workout. And that is the mistake. Well, so a lot of athletes.
What's the negative of that?
What's that? Oh, so the opposite would be I'm just going to follow heart rate. All right. I'm going to keep my heart rate at 135. And what happens to your speed when you get tired?
You slow down.
It'll slow down. So think about this. I just trained at a 135 level of pain. But what did my muscles learn to do? They started fast and I taught them to run slow. So you just made yourself worse there. You see the problem?
But don't you have to do that? Like
there is a
this
solution.
Could be wrong. Okay, let's get to the solution.
What's the negative of maybe tapping into the type 2 muscle fibers on a run that's supposed to be zone 2?
You mean going too slow?
You're trying to do a zone 2 run.
Yep.
And you get fatigued, you get tired, and you start to try to maintain your speed, and you're having a hard time doing that. What's the negative of that?
So so that is the question then why is it happening? And so what we have to think about is the way that the brain recruits muscle fibers. So what the brain does is it matches up with your amount of force. So when you're going slow, walking, it just gives you enough slow twitch fibers to match that intensity. If you go into a light jog, it's going to give you a greater percentage of those slow twitch fibers out of your entire pool. So when you start your zone 2, and let's say your heart rate's 135 and your speed's a 10-minute mile, it's going to give you a small percentage of slow twitch fibers. All your other fibers are resting. These are the ones that are allowing you to do the work. Now, what's going to happen is those fibers will eventually fatigue and fail, and the brain shuts them off. Simultaneously, it brings in a new grouping of motor units to continue the speed. They fatigue and fail, shuts them off, and essentially what happens is you work your way around to the original recruited fibers. And this is where the stamina piece comes in. This is why elite marathon runners do 150 miles in a week, because they don't want to have a stamina-related failure. What most people do is they come back to these original recruited fibers. Those fibers haven't ever been forced to go back in the game. So they don't want to go back in the game. They need more time to rest and recover in order to go back in the game. And so what you do when your heart rate starts spiking is you start grabbing a percentage of fast twitch fibers. Now you've ruined the purpose, because the purpose of a zone 2 is aerobic oxygen with slow twitch. And now what you're doing is it's starting to incorporate a muscle fiber group that cannot remotely endure as long as a slow twitch. And what you've done is reinforce those fibers and said, you know what? I got you, bro. You don't ever have to go back in the game, because 50% of my arsenal of fibers is fast twitch, and I have enough to now bring it home. And that's the problem, is that you now will never build up capacity because you always sub in the fast fiber. And so what you have to realize is why does it happen? Those fibers haven't had enough time to recover. So then what I would want you to do is if you have one data point like following Maffetone and you see it hit 140, you're getting to the point where you're losing the purpose. And that's why a heart watch is valuable in zone 2. You hit 140 and now you're suspect of these fibers need more rest time. So what do? You walk. And walking is permitted. Why? Because it's not running and it's slow twitch, and you walk until you drop 5 below, meaning 130, and then you go back to your 10-minute mile pace. So by walking, what you're doing is you're giving those original recruited fibers more time. And that's the whole point. The purpose is I need to recycle and recycle and recycle so that I can do a marathon. And the reason why most fail in a marathon is because they never develop the ability to just recycle those slow twitch enduring fibers.
It's an amazing explanation, and it sounds to me like we just did a set. Right? Like when you think about lifting,
That's right.
we need to rest a little bit in between the lift, and the longer that you rest, the more that you can put back into the weights that you're lifting.
That's right. And so what you're trying to do is on a zone 2 is to be able to do the entire 20 minutes without walking. So here's the trick. And here's another mistake that people make. How do you know how fast to run? Like I said, 10-minute mile, but maybe it's a 12-minute mile. Maybe it's a 15-minute mile. Here's the thing is that you're trying to find a speed that gets you into the minimum, meaning in your situation, I have to be at 131. The problem is that a lot of people don't realize that there is a minimal level of cardiorespiratory adaptation. If you're going too slow, there's no value. It's what's called zone 1. It's called a recovery workout. And a recovery workout, zone 1, the purpose is to elevate your heart rate, to take contaminants out of the muscle fiber, and to take nutrients into the muscle fiber. It's not a cardiorespiratory type of a workout. It's a recovery workout. So what you have to do is pick a speed at the start that at least gets you after 3-4 minutes above the minimum floor. And that's how I would start. So the key is after 3 to 4 minutes, you're above that minimum. You're in that plus or minus 5 range. And then what you're going to do is you're going to walk every time it goes above by 5. You're going to run again when it goes down by 5. Your task is to do it unbroken. And what's beautiful is this is measurable. In time, you'll get it. And you know what? When you get 20 minutes, it's satisfying for everybody because they did something they couldn't do. And that is important. Athletes need to show progress. And it can't just say a coach is like, you're getting better, trust me. This is measurable. The question is what do you do after that? So after you get to 20 minutes, what do you do? Because if you keep doing 20 minutes at that same speed, you're going to get worse, right?
You try to go further, right?
There you go.
Go a little right, go a little faster. You can keep that same duration, or you can switch it up a little bit.
You know, I love how smart you are. You know what's funny is about
fantastic explanation, really.
But what's interesting about weightlifting and endurance, we speak the same language, but I have no idea to do what you do.
Right.
I have no idea how to do it. Like I see empty space and I don't know, but it's the same concepts. So you're right. What you do is you would expand by going from 20 minutes to 25. Same rules. After you make it 25 unbroken, what do? You go to 30 and you go all the way to an hour. So the games athlete, 1 hour is like the holy grail if they can get there, and they all get there. But the other side is what you said, speed. So what you do is you maintain the 20 minutes, you maintain the same heart rate because that's your constant, but the speed improves by 15 seconds per mile. And when you make 20 minutes, you move it another 15 seconds per mile. Jeffrey Adler, who is arguably one of the best runners in CrossFit right now on an elite level, his zone 2 is under 7 minute per mile pace.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah. And he's not a runner, he's a lifter.
Yeah. And I want to get to Jeffrey, but I do want to know, everybody else but me probably picked up on it. Why, you mentioned walk, right? When you get out of that zone 2, walk. Why not just slow down? Because we talked about the slowing down, but why not just slow down, go a little bit slower? Why walk instead of slowing down?
That's a good question. So the reason why is because you don't accumulate time during the slowdown. So meaning your job is to do, let's say 20 minutes in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So you stop your watch and you just walk because it's easily to measure. So
Okay.
when someone slows down, it needs to be a clear, it's a break. It's an
Got it.
active recovery.
So rather than like, let's say their goal is to keep their heart rate at like 140 or 145, rather than like slowing down so that they can maintain that heart rate,
Right.
they should maintain the speed. And if their heart rate goes above, walk, stop the time, get back down, five beats below, and then resume.
No, you could certainly do that. You certainly could. But the problem that I don't like about it is I'm trying to train a speed.
Okay.
I'm being aware of what is my speed that I can maintain. What we're trying to do is build a
So you
library
don't
of knowledge.
Yeah, you don't like teaching that slower speed.
Right. That's the problem. I want to teach a speed that you now know is my sustainable speed, that I've got this speed. So if I was training you for a marathon, I'm going to be using that zone 2 speed. That is one of my primary go-to speeds. As I get more information about you, eventually I'm going to roll that into, here's your projected marathon speed. Here's your other gears.
Can I ask you another question about this? Because this makes me wonder, like, okay, so I get why now we're trying to focus on a speed. But if somebody were to just instead, when they see that heart rate going up, they slow down, their speed goes down, they keep their heart rate the same.
Yep.
If they did that over time, wouldn't they still naturally get faster over the next few? Oh, so
There's many ways to skin a cat. So your way works fine.
And
it's not even my way. I'm just wondering,
no.
because I'm not doing it. So I'm just wondering, you know?
Yeah, especially if someone's new, that will work really well.
Right. So that's where you can absolutely just slow down. But here's what I don't like the idea.
Okay.
I want something that's measurable. I want to see performance improvements. I want something that week after week after week, oh, my speed is dropping. Like Jeffrey Adler started, for example, at an 8:45 mile. And then all of a sudden it was like he was 8:30. It was shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Matt Frazier, his best was a 7:35 mile. When he hit 7:30, it was like, I didn't think it was ever humanly possible. It was very measurable. And that is something that is motivating for an athlete. The fact that they can actually measure their progress. Remember, athletes, it's this theory of recency. They only remember what they did last.
Yeah.
Well, what if nothing is measurable? You're just going out and running again. And that's the problem is that it's not sustainable.
That's interesting what you're saying. You only remember what you did last. That is like so true. You just think you go in the gym, like let's say that you deadlift 500 pounds normally. And for whatever reason, you go to deadlift that day and just things are off and 405 is heavy. You're in your car thinking about your training. You're like, all my training's off, my diet's off, my sleep's off. You're just so in your head about that last workout, even though you have proficiency and capacity to lift a lot more weight. It's just for a number of reasons, maybe it was a bad workout.
Right. Yeah. So that's where, your way, let's be clear, works. Matter of fact, that's how I train for triathlons. You speed up and slow down based upon your terrain too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but what I'm talking about is developing in the beginning. How do you establish your base? How do you establish your foundation? How do you develop that? Because at some point in time, you have to start adding in intensity. Mm-hmm. Most people, they don't even know what is considered an adequate base before they build the intensity phase. That's why I said 20 minutes. If you could do 20 minutes unbroken, in my opinion, your structure, your bones, your ligaments and tendons are sound enough to be able to start adding in some intensity. But that doesn't mean that we ignore that foundation. That foundation must continuously evolve. So it's not that all of the athletes that I coach in the CrossFit space are migrating away from zone 2. And what they're doing now is adding in surges within the middle. So what they'll do is, let's say a zone 2 run, 2 minutes, they'll go in and push a sled for 10 seconds maximum sprint, spike the heart rate, and then back to zone 2 to teach the body on how to recover into that zone 2. Well, what does that evolve into? Eventually it works into a zone 2 followed by 10 100-meter sprints with 3 minutes of rest. And then what does it evolve to? It evolves into a speed workout and a zone 2 workout. So there's a natural progression